tags. The description, do we not?
I got it. I copied it from the list. What is going on with that? What was that?
That was my phone.
The intro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was my phone.
Pork rind?
Munchos.
Okay, I'm adding Planet X. I love Munchos. Planet X is a new fucking tag. 9th planet.
Yeah.
Planet 9.
Planet 12.
Yeah,
What else?
Planet 12 as well.
What else?
Because the sun is a planet. Yeah.
What else, guys?
Oh Christ, I don't know. Anunnaki. That's Anunnaki. I think.
Alright, let's try that again. Try that again.
Nemesis, Cataclysm.
Anunnaki.
AKI?
Yeah.
Okay. What did you say, Port Ponky?
Nemesis, Cataclysm.
Yeah, Nemesis is a good one. Nemesis. And Cataclysm.
Cataclysm.
Zechariah, Sitchin, Nancy, Leider. How do you say that?
Nancy Lieder, if it's German.
Leider?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meter.
Alright,
You
Nancy
can also
Leader.
do Tyche. Tyche.
BYCHE. I think that's good for now, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Alright, save. I think it goes without saying, but once we go live, please no munchos.
That's why I get my munchos in before the stream starts.
Just saying, they really have their name for a reason.
Ah.
I love them, dude. They're so salty.
Yep.
Okay, everybody got going critical pin.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yes.
So, Pete, I will introduce you after I've introduced the team, and I will give you a little sort of run-up intro. I'll ask you the 3 basic questions. Who are you? How are you doing? What do you do? How long have you done it? You know, very basic. And then
Hey,
get straight on.
real quick, Zapostate, are you on Going Critical in the chat?
Yes, I am.
Would you mod C4, please? If unless somebody has an issue with that.
No problem there.
Alright, guys, I'll be right back. Give me a minute.
Did you see
Professor-
the script?
Right, go ahead.
No, it's alright, go on.
I see Professor Lion Wanker is sticks to character in the chat. That's really cool.
He does, doesn't he? He does the method.
Yeah.
I wish the conspiracist did that, but he doesn't.
Did you see the script at all, Pop Honky?
We hosted a massive party thing today,
Okay.
so I have not sat down.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm just checking because all it is once we do the new creator, that's when I'll turn to you to do your intro, and then immediately after that, I'll point out that I'll be putting pictures throughout the show, and that you've also got some. And I don't know if you want to introduce.
I've got live reports
Yes, you've got live report
from a Going Critical probe we've sent out to the outer solar system to find Nibiru, but we need the help of the chat to find it for sure.
Indeed. So you just basically want me at 5 random points to say, and we've got a special report. Sorry, we've got a live report from Port Punky now, just at a random point.
Yeah, we're from the going critical solar probe, no, not solar probe. Deep exploration probe or something.
Anal probe.
Yeah, if you can make it very clear, like if we've seen that, that's bonus points.
The giant floating probe is Uranus.
Yeah, you're getting it.
Around
So we've now got a live report from Port Punky from our giant probe floating around Uranus. Port Punky.
It's not from me.
Perfect.
It's from the probe. Remember, I didn't just make these. These are live from space. The videos clearly say live from space.
Yes, live from space. I can even start like that. Now, live from space. Right?
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember 5 of those.
Remember to get the chat to guess where Nibiru is. Highly telling you.
So, when Bobby's still awake, isn't it? When Bobby hears me say that and I go to you, he's going to know that it's time to play the next video. Oh, I woefully underprepared. Ah! Right. Oh, that's out of my system.
They said they can hear us.
Oh, they can hear us. That's lovely.
That's always the case. Well, we do this every week. That's you know, our little glimpse into the world of magic.
Quick, spill all the scandalous gossip.
You know who I really hate? That. Oh, no, maybe not.
Ooh! I can't stand liars.
Yeah, those liars.
Wait, does this mean that they now might suspect that our live space footage is not live?
Oh no!
Oh god! The magic of television.
Every week, man, every week. Spoiler alert. Okay, if everyone listening, if you wouldn't mind putting your fingers in your ears and just humming for about the next 5 minutes, that'd be just great.
Why would
And
they
your
want to,
disbelief. This is all a dream.
why would they want to hum over this beautiful royalty-free music?
Oh no. Does that mean they can't hear it or they can?
Maybe they don't want to.
Oh, I hear it in the background now.
Oh, that means they're going to hear it double. That's going to be very unpleasant.
Epic.
It's not CGI footage.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be clearly live from space. I was very explicit about
They
this.
can definitely hear us.
Well, no, I have no doubt that they can. That's fine.
They're probably going to hear us later on as well.
So anyway, my PIN number.
Oh yeah. Is it the same as mine? 3333?
Yeah, that's right. 3333. Special order from NASA. In those gold coins with the pentagram on them.
Yeah. Oh. Isn't it only a pentagram when it's a certain way up?
I don't know. I'm not sure. That sounds like a law too far to me.
End of conspiracy would know. He would know it like that.
Yeah. He's not in the chat today, is he?
Maybe we can summon him. That would be.
Well, I mean, we need hoods, right, and candles, but we don't know what a pentagram is, so we can't draw it.
You don't know the symbols required to summon ETC.
Oh, recursive nightmare. Never mind. because we're running late, we can entertain people without enabling mindless chatter.
Let's do a competition. Okay, first person to type in 753 wins a prize.
The slow wait as it travels to and from the network, up the satellite, down the satellite, back again. This is the problem with, of course, asking the questions live to the audience, which is it's great to get feedback. I love it as much as anyone, but you have to wait that god-awful 20 seconds whilst it works its way through.
Oh, Michelle has won.
Hey, the hef of Vina.
Congratulations, Michelle. Your prize is a cash prize. It's €0. Or I can convert that to any other currency.
1 million NIBIRU bucks.
Well, that's equivalent to €0.
More or less.
Currency,
Yeah,
the currency with zero value is not numerically zero. That would be very strange.
That's petty cash for NIBIRU. I mean, after all, they mined all the gold.
Oh, this is
Well,
true.
Spoilers.
Oh wait, but they flooded the market, so maybe it's not worth anything. In fact, doesn't that mean hyperinflation? I'm sure that's hyperinflation.
No. Do you know what they needed the gold for?
What was that?
Well, I'm not going to say it now because I'm going to say it. But it's not cash.
I actually stand by that as a decent thing to mine. Like, there's this film called Cowboys and Aliens, right, which is a bit of fun, really. But I saw someone complain, "Oh, why would aliens come to Earth just to mine gold?" It's like, well, actually, gold's quite a useful element, particularly for like electronics and stuff, and it's rare. So, like, maybe if you did run out, it would make sense to go next door and get some more. Like, it's easier than mining it in the heart of a star or making it at home with a particle accelerator, I guess.
Yeah, it does make sense. I feel like there's probably better sources of gold kicking about.
Yeah, me too. Like other, planets within any solar system.
Planets without jerk humans on them.
Well, I don't know. You never know who's next door. Carl Sagan was a proponent of the idea that we shouldn't actually send messages out into space in case there's some evil killer predator out there that just wipes out anything that gets that far, sort of technologically. That's nice and frightening.
Okay, making sure we have everything set.
Bobby, we're audible in the chat, by the way, at the moment. Just a heads up.
Yeah, we've been giving out your credit card information, so it's all good.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. I'm Jim Bojo. Welcome to Going Critical. Thank you for being so patient and waiting the extra week for us to return. It's my fault entirely, I'm afraid. It turns out my innards are constructed from crepe paper and I'm literally dissolving. But fear not, for they found a special glue to fill the gaps and they've pulled out some silly bits. So I'm back to work and fighting fit nearly. Anyway, to those of you who waited, and thank you to those of you who have made your way over here from the various different recommendations and adverts we've been feverishly spewing forth like active volcanoes all this week. We've certainly got a blinding show for you this week because we're looking into the complicated and frankly silly world of the NIBIRU Cataclysm. It's a true classic in the world of Woo, this one. You've got spirit channeling, you've got pseudoscience, you've got bad astrology, and just some good old-fashioned bad ideas. However, before we get into the question at hand, I'm going to introduce the usual tour of the table to find out who's here and who's not. So, first up, Zapostate. Hello, Squire. How are you doing today?
I feel a bit of a magnetic shift coming, but I took a little cough medicine. I should be okay.
Oh, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. You got anything up and coming new that you want to tell people about while you got a chance?
Yeah, probably sometime this week I'll be releasing my part 2 of responding to S.J. Thomason's video on Judeo-Christian values in the West. So
Awesome.
Yeah. Actually, I can recommend that. That first half was brilliant, man. Yeah, keep going, because she's a bit of a nightmare. She's actually banned me from her Twitter. I can't believe it. I swear to God, I went in and asked one question, and I was very polite. Bang, instant. She's terrible. Right, who's next on the list? Anthony Bailey. Tony, how are you doing today, mate?
Hey, doing great. Thanks a lot.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, busy week for us in the Postal Service.
Oh, yeah, right. Christmas time. Jesus.
Too. What? Amazon is killing us.
Oh, man, I bet.
But
yeah, for that reason, you've just basically been working pretty furiously on this project. I know every day that I've talked to you, you've been researching away, so you've been going pretty crazy on this one, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
I want to say...
It's good to have you here. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say, people, I do have my channel, Stoneheart Red, and you can take a look over there if you feel like it.
Absolutely, you got some great drone videos. You got a couple of flat Earth videos. There's a bunch of interesting stuff over there. I can definitely recommend you go and have a look at it. We've got Robert Leger III on producing today. Hello, Squire. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, everybody. How's it going?
Oh, I'm pretty good, man. You've had an insane week of work, or 2 weeks, pretty much. I've barely spoken to you in about 13 days, so I hope you're bearing up under the strain.
Yeah. Right before Christmas, and it usually starts a week or so before Thanksgiving. Everybody realizes they got family coming over, and the sink doesn't turn off all the way, or the toilet doesn't flush. Everybody starts freaking out about stuff like that. So the holidays is actually a heavy time for us.
Oh, man, that's understandable. All right, well, thank you very much for managing to find time to join this, then, I suppose. Let's see, we've also got Port Ponky in today. Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Excellent. That's wonderful to hear. Oh, you've got your reading glasses on today. Excellent. That means we won't have that awkward moment where we're reaching for them, because you and I both have that problem. I've got mine just at hand on the left-hand side. You've got a couple of videos out this week, haven't you? Perhaps you'd like to tell people about them.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
Thank you. I did, spacesuits, vacuum chambers. Yeah. I think a bunch of other content creators covered the same topic, but yeah, well, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, but to be honest, it was an excellent interpretation of it. I did like that football analogy as well, because it basically explained the whole thing in about 10 seconds flat, which is just epic.
Like a lot of these subjects, when you think about it for about 10 seconds, you realize, oh, hang on, it's quite simple.
Yeah. Oh, well, fair enough. Thank you very much indeed for joining us as well. Now, in case you've forgotten, I'm Jim Bojo. I talk to people and my cat debunks slurs. Now, a couple of things. She's unfortunately been unable to join us, right, Bobby?
Hey, Jim, you roboted out there if you want to repeat.
Oh, okay. How am I sounding now? Can you hear me?
You're back.
Beautiful. Well, look, basically, Carissa Brock, unfortunately, this week has been unable to join us because she has had pretty much a nightmare week from hell. So, well wishes from everyone on the show. I hope everyone out there wishes her the same. With a bit of luck, she'll be back from Fighting Fit next week as well. And for those of you who are wondering, Kristen Frost Laser Beams has been with the Going Critical crew for a goodly while now. But because of sort of her work commitments, she's been unable to appear on the show up till now. We're hoping that in the near future, if we shuffle things around a little bit, she's going to be a regular panel member. So that's just for anyone who was asking up till now. In terms of what I've got coming out, I've had a Mr. Jimbal's video out. There'll be another one in a week or so, but that's basically it. Now I think it's time we go to the special guest. What do you think? He hosts the Sci-Fi Movie Night on a Sunday. Today I watched that, so he's pretty well known in the community. And I have to say, today's movie was absolutely excellent. You've probably seen him all over the place, but if you know him for anything, it's for his amateur space photography, because he's really quite skillful in that regard. You've seen his name in the description, and if you haven't, you really need to check out those links. It's Pete Berube. Hello, mate. How are you doing today?
Howdy ho. I'm doing great.
Woo.
Nice and relaxed today.
That boy Pete.
Oh, excellent. Well, look, brilliant. Thank you ever so much for joining us, man. I reckon you're going to be able to help us out quite a bit with this NIBIRU topic, because it certainly involves some astronomy. Just in case people don't know, in a nutshell, how do you describe sort of who you are and what it is that you do on YouTube?
Well, I dislike ignorant topics like flat Earth and mud floods and all that stuff. So whenever it pisses me off enough, I make a video. Outside of that, I try to give everybody a little bit of a break from all of that. And I host Sci-Fi Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Kind of get away from it, have some fun, mess around, relax some more before we go back into the week of stupidity.
Well, quite. No, thank you ever so much as well, I have to say, because today's, which was it Invaders from Space?
Yep.
Featuring, what was it called? Starman? I forget.
Yep.
Epic video from 1965 involving endless men in leotards doing backflips. You need to get over to his channel and watch that right now. Just out of interest, how long have you been on YouTube, by the way? Oh, sorry, Bobby, what was that?
Pete's Sci-Fi Sunday is a really good time. It's just a great excuse to get together and hang out and shoot the shit.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. I mean, I've only been into a couple of them recently, but I think I'm going to make a bit of a thing of it now, because that was an absolute blast today. Now, look, how long have you been on YouTube, Pete? Roughly how long have you been doing what you do?
I've been officially making videos for about 5 months now, but I've been in the chat since a couple of years now of all like the flat Earth debates and shills and all that stuff. So you see me more in the chat than anything else.
Okay, and what was it triggered you just to move from being in the chat rooms to actually making content? Oh, did I lose you? I think Pete's gone quiet. Are you there, mate?
Yeah, Pete dropped.
Dum dum dum. Well, look, that's
it says he's rejoined, but give it a second here.
There we go.
okay.
Okay, Pete is back.
Brilliant stuff, Pete. Hello, mate. You there?
Hey,
Can you hear me?
Yep. Sorry, I hit an interdimensional portholes there, so time to time.
Brilliant. All right. Well, look, that was basically the end of my question. The last question I always ask is if you've got anything that you want to shill. You know, have you got any videos out that you want people to go and have a look at? New creators that you've seen? Anything really? Just tell people what you want them to go and see.
Yeah. Basically, I've been watching all the Steve McRae stuff going on with that KJ person. I don't want to say the name, but been keeping up with all that nonsense, and then just cranking along with all the 1 minute debunk videos that come out, all the Cyman dance stuff that comes out, all the Jim Bell stuff that comes out. So yeah, just rocking along the community like always.
Bless you, man. That's really cool. Well, thank you again, just like everyone today, actually. Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed taking part. A reminder to anyone in the audience, look, if you've got any questions or comments for one of the panel, for Pete, just regarding anything, don't forget, if you at Zapostate, he's going to make sure that we get all of those things. He's going to be running the chat for us today. We've got no corrections again this week, which means once again, we're doing an absolutely perfect job, clearly. Or nobody spotted any of them. So keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure we're going to screw up somewhere or another. And you can send us leave a comment below. You can at us during this. You can send us an email to goingcriticalshow@gmail.com. That all said, just this moment, I think I'm going to throw the reins over to Anthony Bailey, because he's got a new creator this week that he wants to tell us about. Tony, what have you got?
Yeah, today I'd like to present a relative new creator, and he goes by the name of Captain Phobos. Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, easy. Whoa there. Tony, away. Go on, man.
He has several videos, with his latest being a Dumb Fuck of the Year submission for your favorite bridesmaid, Sleeping Warrior. At present, he he is mostly flat Earth centric, but he does plan on branching out to other areas. For as he puts it, there's a lot of dumb out there. Sounds like we have another skeptic amongst us. Well, for myself, I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. And at present, he is at 89 subs. Maybe we can get him up over 100 today. Anyway,
Let's go.
this is my recommendation. And if you like what he does, give him a sub. Back to you, Jim.
Fantastic, thank you, Tony. I agree completely. I've watched this stuff. I think it's brilliant. Also, if we can get 11 with a sub to him, come on, it can't be that hard. Everyone, get over there to this guy. We'll have the link in the description. It should be there. If it's not already, it will be by the end of the show, and you can have a look. Now, I think we've actually got a clip of this guy to play, don't we, Bobby? So why don't you stick that one on?
Yes, we do. I'm so antsy that I keep pre-clicking it. Here we go. Here we go.
Google, when was gravity invented?
Oh dear. Okay, first, just because you ask a stupid question, oh yeah, it makes it a stupid question. And you just asked a stupid question. You don't invent a law. If anything, if you like, you discover it. But anyway, carry on.
You like that? Finally, we shall place the sun himself at the center of the universe.
Okay, that's it, isn't it? That's the crackpot idea. You think Copernicus worshipped the sun? Really?
Couple of strange things there. He calls the sun him.
Vlad, people do that all the time. It doesn't mean people think something's a god. It just means they value that thing. She's a beauty when they're talking about their car. Isn't that a beautiful plane? Doesn't she fly like a gem? People do it all the time, Vlad. Doesn't mean they mean anything by it.
Read and learned about this man. He was a pagan sun worshipper.
Vlad, he was a committed Catholic part of the church. That's why he was so afraid to put his ideas out there, because he wondered what his effect would be on him being part of the church. He was not a pagan. Right,
Google,
Woo!
when was
That was amazing. Right, I can recommend you get over there and look at that straight away. It's hilarious. So some of you who've watched the DFOTY inaugural celebrations this year will have spotted that video being played. So you know it's a certain amount of high quality going on. So I can thank you once again, Tony. Don't forget to check out the links in the description. It's definitely worth a look. Right, I think that's housekeeping done. So normally at this point, what I would do is I'm going to pass over to Port Ponky, who's got an introduction for the topic this week. Port Ponky, you there?
I am indeed.
Lovely.
I do have an introduction. Let me just put my reading glasses on.
Fascinating.
Every time, I mixed up every time. Anyway, in the outer reaches of the solar system, far beyond Neptune, there is a secret hidden planet known only as NIBIRU, or also Planet X, or Planet 12. Or maybe Nemesis. Also, it might not be a planet. Anyway, discovered from ancient Sumerian records, legends speak of a race of ancient godlike aliens whose planet, NIBIRU, passes the inner solar system every few thousand years. Perhaps these aliens also had a hand in the origins and development of human life. The next time NIBIRU swings by, it could be curtains for us as it might well smash into Earth and kill us all to bits. The only questions are, does Nibiru exist? Where is it? And how long have we got before we're all killed? Today's topic is the Nibiru Cataclysm.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul Ponky. What an amazing intro you do every week. That's fantastic. How can I possibly lead on from that, really? Look, it's pretty basic from my perspective. I want to find out where all this came from. And if you want that, you've got to have a look into the origins of the thing. Now, does anyone here want to jump in with where they think the origins of the Nibiru myth originally are? Let's see. Zapostate, what about you, buddy?
Hey, sure. I think recently, anyway, as far as if you don't count old mythos and things like that, our recent understanding of Nibiru, or understanding, whatever you want to call it, comes from a fellow named Zechariah Stitchin, who was a scientist. We use the word scientist really, really lightly here. But he began writing a series of books back in the 70s called what the heck was it called? The Earth Chronicles?
That's right.
I had it up here. And his idea was, upon his study of ancient Sumerian cylinders, writings and things, he thought the ancient Sumerians believed in a 12-planet system. Now, of course, he includes the sun and the moon as planets in that. But if you just don't worry about that, then 12 planets is our 8 planets, plus the sun and the moon, plus Pluto, and another one.
Even though Pluto, well, look, I won't address Pluto just for the minute. Look, before you go on, I'm going to turn to Bobby and just ask if you'd mind putting the first image from the media file on, because I've got a picture of Zechariah Stitchin up here that we can stick up there in the top corner just as a little reference.
It's Sitchin, not Stitchin, although he is stitching us up.
Oh,
Is this him?
yep,
Sitchin.
my bad.
Is this him?
Stitchin, I do apologise.
Yeah, that's the boy.
I've clearly written it wrong.
All
There
right.
he is. Now, this is the chap who we're talking about. Now, this was back in, I think I've got 1976. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Because part of the Earth Chronicles specifically was the one book, which was called The 12th Planet. Now, he'd written this based on, now let's see, was it the Cylinder Seals? Poor Ponky, why don't you pick up the story?
So, yeah, the Cylinder Seals, was this the bunch of Sumerian text that he translated?
Sure.
Wait, the seal, this is the thing he's holding here in this picture, isn't it? That's an imprint of the seal, which
I think that's...
he argued, if you see down towards the bottom left, above the people's shoulders, there's a star sort of emblem with 12 little circles around it.
Okay.
Which he argued were the 12 planets around the sun.
Yeah, although be careful about counting them, obviously.
Yeah, the sun is one of them, so there's 11 circles around it.
Of course.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of other Sumerian that he translated.
Quite. Well, now, look, before you press on, Bobby, why don't we just move to the next image? Because I've actually got a picture of some of these Sumerian cylinder seals here. No, that is a picture of David Icke. That's number 10. I know what's going to happen now. Can you jump on to... Oh, crikey. It's going to be number 2, so you're going to have to jump on 5 images.
Are they numbered?
For some reason, it's put 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 immediately after 1. For some reason.
You got to put those leading zeros in.
Yep, I certainly did. Right, okay, so can you skip back 1 image? There we go. Finally. So, excellent. I know where we are now. So, this is a cylinder seal, okay? This is just basically a way to imprint a unique image across something to sort of almost like a security thing, right? And a lot of the more wealthy families would have these. You roll it across the clay and it leaves the imprint on it, and they tend to have sort of fairly famous images on them. They also have other uses in terms of sort of learning reading and writing, which was quite a common thing to do back then. They had a specific educational system for it. So they had thousands and thousands and thousands of these different seals from across the period, which had essentially the entire language and all sorts of stories imprinted onto it, right? Does anyone know a little bit about this stuff, or anyone want to jump in? I love those big fat yawning silences. Tony Bailey. Oh,
No, I was just
Yeah.
making sarcastic comments. On you go, Tony.
No, I have my own NIBIRU here. Will you get down?
Cat butt.
Are you there, Tony? I think NIBIRU's attacked.
Yeah. What was the question? Sorry.
I was just wondering if you found out anything about what these cylinder seals were, because it's where the story's been sort of misappropriated from. But for people who are wondering, this is what an actual cylinder seal is. There were thousands of them. I just wondered if you had anything you wanted to add to it.
Well, they were relatively popular in the bureaucracy because because of the rolling action, you can get a longer seal, and it represents their status
Okay.
and their position in the society, or like, okay, I am so and so, and I work for so what, and like that, and because it rolls, they could put it on pottery better. It's reusable, and for the clay tablets they were using at the time, it's pretty much optimal. It's not any different than printing rollers that we have today.
Nice. Yeah, well put. Thank you very much indeed. Let's see now. If we skip on to the next image, the one we were at before, that was called The 12th Planet. That's the book that we were sort of talking about before. We've got this chap, Zechariah Sitchin, who has found out about these scrolls and has quote unquote translated them. And off the basis of that translation has come up with this story about, the NIBIRU planet. Now, Port Ponky, you were telling us a little bit about this before. Where were you, mate? 'Cause I can't remember now.
Well, there's so much to it. It's a thick lore with a hell of a lot going on. How deep do you want to go?
Oh, just keep climbing down that rabbit hole until it's so dark we can't see.
So there was a bunch of Sumerian, which Zechariah translated. I'm on first name basis with him. I didn't really look into the Sumerian as much as you because he's an economist and he's not a linguist, but that's cool.
Quite.
So he found out that the Sumerian that he translated. Well, actually, this originated more because when studying the Bible mentions a few unusual things in the Old Testament, including the Nephilim.
Yeah, that's an interesting part.
Which were sometimes translated as giants, I think, but it's the Nephilim. And in looking for an explanation of who the Nephilim are, he went to the origin, which he reckoned was Sumerian mythology. Not sure if it is, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt there. And he translated a lot of that. And
Indeed.
It tells a big, long story about the Anunnaki, who he claimed were the Nephilim.
Well, now this is it, because we're basically moving into from the historical to the claims section, okay? And before we go from that, I think I just want to make sure that we've covered our ground. This chap, Jeremiah Sitchin, beg pardon, essentially came up with this story off of the back of the translation that he did. There have been other people associated with it since who've taken it in various different directions, notably Erich von Daniken, the guy who's one of the major proponents for Ancient Aliens you see on the History Channel. Also Nancy Leader in 1995, who decided to start channeling aliens. I expect we'll get onto her in a little bit. There's been one or two names associated with it anyway. So that being said, first of all, Bobby, I want you to load up video number 1, because as I understand it, we have got a live report from space, from our giant floating probe round Uranus. Here it is. It's Port Ponky. Hello, sir.
Hi, yes. Earlier in the week, we launched a probe to the outer solar system to search for NIBIRU. But we're going to need the chat to help. Which way do I point for the chat? That's where.
That's it. You got it.
I'm pointing at the chat, I think. So everyone in the chat, keep your eyes peeled. There's a giant NIBIRU planet hidden somewhere. Well, maybe there is. There is. It's a game. No, it's real. It's real science. It's real science. There's a big Nibiru face. It looks angry. It looks a lot like the moon from the Zelda game. So if we can get that live footage live from space, maybe the chat can help us find Nibiru. The first person to find it is amazing. So type in where Nibiru is if you see it.
Here we go.
There you go. Did you see it, ladies and gentlemen? Now, if you spotted Nibiru, make sure you get your answers in the chat as apostate, and we're going to collate them and find out who's been right and who's been wrong. Now, as I understand it, I think there was a message in the chat from Kristen Frost Laser, not Kristen Frost Laser Beams, beg your pardon, it was Marvel Girl, who wanted us to shout out something. So, apostate, did you spot that one by any chance?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Let me scroll back through a minute. Possibly Bobby, did you see that one? It's just that she had some sort of fundraiser running, and I wanted to tell people that they can get over there and watch it. It's just I'm not 100% sure what it was. Let's see.
I believe she's referring to we're doing trying to raise funds to help Mr. TNT, they and them.
Oh, okay.
If she could post it again so I can be sure that's what she was talking about, I'd appreciate it because I wasn't paying attention. Oh, would you be so kind to shout out the fundraiser we are having for TNT Bacon God, the Bacon
That's
God,
the one.
on Friday the 13th on Conspiracy Catch channel. So next Friday, not this upcoming Friday, on Conspiracy Catch channel, we'll be having a fundraiser to try to help our friend TNT with some rough times.
Brilliant stuff. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed for that, Bobby. Apostate, as we're over there, do we have any questions or comments you wanted to read out yet, or we still?
No, not yet. Not so much.
Okay, brilliant stuff. And once again, I want to know what your answers are for that question. If you didn't see Nibiru, you can say so too. Okay, also, throughout the show, I'm going to be sprinkling a couple of images as well, because I've got a bit of a challenge I want to put to the audience as well. So, Bobby, I've got my own separate media folder. Could you just stick image number 1 up for a minute? And I want to know, is this Nibiru or not Nibiru?
Here we go.
That, can you see? Is it? Is it not? Members of the panel, what is it? Is it Nibiru or is it not Nibiru? Come on.
No, that's a different planet altogether. It's called, I think it's Lensflare. Lensflare? I can't remember.
I think he might have rumbled me. You're correct. That is not Nibiru. That is in fact a lens flare. And look, whilst you're warmed up, why don't we put on image number 2 just to see if you're still got your observational powers? Okay, is that Nibiru or is that not Nibiru?
Is it an orange?
I would say not Nibiru.
That is not Nibiru. You think that's not Nibiru?
No.
It's a bit of a trick question, I'm afraid. It's an artist impression. Of course, it's not real, but it is an artist impression of Nibiru. It's got red oxide wings, apparently, or iron oxide wings, I should say, which I'm pretty sure is rust. So anyway, I'm not sure how that works. Anyway, you see how it works. Every once in a while, I'm going to say Nibiru or not Nibiru, and then you can just shout out in the chat, members of the panel, everyone have a go. We'll see whether that was a waste of time at the end, won't we? But it could be fun. Anyway, right, where were we? I think it's time that we moved on to the claims section of the show, right? We certainly got quite a few of these. The first image folder we were looking at, I think it was a picture of the 12th Planet book. If we skip on one, we're going to see an image that Pete Ruby put in our folder. I wonder if he could tell us exactly what it is. Oh, no, that's not the one.
That's the wrong folder. Hold on a second.
That's the one.
There it is. Yep.
Pete Ruby, what are we looking at, buddy?
This is actually a not a real picture, but it's an artist rendition of what Nibiru would have to look like and the properties it would have to be.
Okay.
This is some 20 AU away from the sun. And it would be the size of, say, Jupiter, but having the properties of Neptune being so far out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I suppose it would. Now, I suppose that might be a good point to move on to the next image, actually, because it's linked to it. This is, as I understand it, the claimed orbit that Nibiru is supposed to be taking. Have we got that one, Bobby?
Here you are.
There we go.
Yep.
You can see the apogee is miles out. Sorry, Pete.
No, you're good.
Fair enough. Well, as far as I
enormous.
understand it, this is a picture of the orbit it's supposed to be taking, right? 3,600 years, as I'm told.
Yep. If it was real, that would be an orbit it would have to have.
Absolutely. Now, that's actually, I think it looks like somewhat of an exaggeration, if I'm honest, because the apogee, the point where it's furthest from the sun in its orbit, doesn't seem to be appropriately far enough away. I'm sure an eccentricity that high wouldn't produce 3,600 years. It'd have to be a lot more extensive. A lot of the arguments against this I've heard is that the orbit, when viewed from above, is almost stick-like. It's ridiculous. The speed the planet reaches at one end would tear it apart as it sort of slingshots around the sun. I wonder if we could jump onto the next image as well, because I think that might be slightly important to the whole general. There you go. It's the same thing as well. This, however, is rather than being about Pete, why don't you tell us again what this one is?
All right. So the big orbit is supposedly, Nibiru or Planet 9 or X. But all the other ones are actually known orbits of objects out in the Oort cloud and just stuff past Neptune and Pluto.
I should cut in at this point, actually, because I think this is my fault here. I think I've stumped you on this question by accident. This is, as far as I understand it, there are certain projections for what... If you look at objects in the very outer solar system, there are perturbations happening and there are alignments of orbit happening, as you can see, which tend to be biased on one side. And that is suggestive of there being a large planet in opposition to that, which is causing this sort of shepherding effect as it goes round. This is the actual hypothesized potential orbit for a planet 9 as far as NASA's concerned. So the Nibiru one is an extreme orbit, whereas this one is actually a lot more realistic. It's very slow and it's very large, but it doesn't conform to any of the descriptions that you see with Nibiru. Is that right?
That's right. This is would be in resonance of all the other objects to keep them in place.
Right. And I've heard everything from, I think, 1113, 79, and 7183 resonance orbits with all of these things, which apparently do produce stable effects eventually.
Yes, that's true.
That's really extraordinary, isn't it? See, this is the difference between the assertions that are made and the actual science that's being done by people. Now, I think the next picture is a picture of Erich von Daniken, who's quite important in the ancient aliens world. I'm going to turn to Anthony Bailey. What do you know about this chap?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Can we direct everybody's attention to the apostate to the green room, please?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Sorry, mate. I haven't been paying attention.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry to interrupt.
This is Erich von Daniken, he of the History Channel fame, right? And he's also a big proponent of the Sumerian stuff. Tony, do you know anything about this guy?
This guy's a big proponent of anything that has aliens in it.
Yeah, more or less.
It's not just the reptilian overlords from Nibiru, but he's got a lot of wild theories about things. Or I say hypothesis, while theories are something that's proven. And nothing he ever said has been proven yet. So, just another wild crockpot in the dark.
I think you're probably right there. I mean, what I'm trying to get at so far, I suppose, is where do we think we are in terms of the claims and the claimants? We've got a few big names in here. Now, I've got a picture of Nancy Leader in my collection at some point, but I think I've got to jump forward 2 images for that. So, Bobby, do you think you could do that for me? That's 1. That's 2. There she is. Zapostate, do you know who this is?
Yeah, Nancy Leader. So Nancy Leader runs, as you can see in the background, a website called zetatalk.com. And she is, according to her, in direct connection with the Zetas, which is a benevolent alien society who implanted something in her head to allow her to have direct connection, like you do with the Zetas. And the Zetas have been telling her for quite a long time now, since 1995 or thereabout, that Nibiru was going to come in close orbit to Earth, and that's where the magnetic pole shift was going to come from. End of days stuff. Very. Ooh.
I've got to stop you. Right, this is a common misconception. There is a magnetic pole shift coming on the Earth. We know this. She was describing an actual physical north-south pole shift, a physical rotation of the Earth, and a part of that would be to disrupt the magnetic fields of the Earth. I'm very keen that we get the bollocks correct, because it is such amazing bollocks. So I just think people should know exactly what she's saying. But apart from that, sorry, spot on. Do carry on.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So, magnetic, yeah, actual pole shift. Yeah, she does have pictures on her website of showing the Earth literally flipped upside down, and describes a lot of what is, the bad effects that would have. Her first idea of that coming around was going to be, well, I'm not sure exactly if this is first, but this was a big one. In May 15th, 2003, was supposed to be when Nibiru was coming and when the end times were going to happen. And that, of course, didn't happen, as you might have guessed. There's all kinds of reasons as to why not. That's another rabbit hole. But and like
point,
most
actually, if you can think of one or two of the reasons she postponed, I mean, you don't have to go through the entire anthology of reasons she came up with to justify her being wrong endlessly. But there were one or two different occasions where, if you feel like pointing them out, then it's perfectly fine, because it gives you an idea of the thinking process of this person. I seem to recall the 2003 one, she said, oh, it was all a ruse because she wanted to upset the establishment. Is that right?
That's exactly right. She called it the Great White Lie of 2003, and it was a very interconnected conspiracy between all the world's governments, of course, and secret societies and everything that every conspiracy theorist could imagine, all came together to fool us, or to have been fooled that the May 15th, 2003 event was going to happen, but it didn't. It got close, but not close enough. That's where we go.
Of course. So simple to make these honest mistakes. Now, I don't know exactly how many of these things that she's sort of pushed down the line at this point, but it's certainly a number, to the extent that other people have been able to pick up the Nibiru ball and run with it, if you like. I know that one of the more famous ones was the the 2012 sort of Nibiru thing. But it is also worth pointing out at this point that there was a sort of a bit of a turning point in the way conspiracies around this worked with the launching of the IRAS telescope. Now, I think we just have to skip forward. Hopefully this works. We're going to skip forward 1, 2 images. No, is that right? 1, 2, 3. It might be 4 images. So stitch in, keep going. Hi, is that there? It is. There it is. So that is the IRAS astronomical satellite. Port Ponky, why don't you tell us a little bit what this thing is?
It's a telescope in space.
Certainly is. Now, why is this important?
Does infrared. It saw a thing that was big, like Jupiter. It said it didn't, I think. Pete, are you there?
Yeah, I was wondering.
Ruby, save her.
Because this is your wheelhouse.
Off you go,
so
please.
we turned it on just to see like the center of the Milky Way, so we can try to further our understanding of our own black hole. But during its testing, we noticed that there was an object that appeared to be moving like way outside of our normal orbital periods of most of the stuff in the solar system. But it turned out to be not so. We don't know what it is that we saw, but it's not in any orbital trajectory around our sun. And that's where we stand today.
Which is great, because it's nice to know that with science, what they basically say is, this is the data that we have. We have not got sufficient data to come to a useful conclusion, but this is what we've got so far. It's honest, even if it doesn't really helpfully answer anything.
Correct. In some ways, they know it wasn't Nibiru. It wasn't a big Jupiter-like planet swinging by.
Quite.
So they can rule things out.
Indeed. Now, look, the reason I brought this up in the first place is because, for me at least, this represented somewhat of a sea change in this conspiracy. People started pointing to NASA evidence, space photos, completely erroneously often, but it became the point where people started to sort of use these bits of technology to do so. Now, if you skip to the next image, Bobby, you'll see that we've got another satellite up. This is the SOHO satellite. Again, this has been used for some similar things. In fact, when I go to my next sort of selection of images for my little sort of quiz, you will see one of these is actually a SOHO image. There are plenty of bits of stuff up there taking images of space, and it's very easy, if you don't know what you're looking at, to just put some circles and some labels on things and convince people of virtually anything. But it was interesting that people even tried, because up until then there really wasn't the ability to do so. You know, pre-Nancy Leader, from 1976 onwards, the satellites weren't really thought about in the same way as they were. Post 95, things started to change somewhat. Let's see. Can we skip back 3 images and see what happens? There we go. Now this is 2012. Does anyone want to talk a little bit about 2012? How about I tell you what, Robert Leger III? We haven't heard from you at all today so far. Do you remember the 2012 Cataclysm claims?
I remember that people thought the end of the world was going to be in 2012. They have a movie about it. Well, that is supposed to be the end of the Mayan calendar or something.
That's right, the end of the Mayan long count calendar. Now, somewhere or other, I've actually got a picture of that, but to be honest, digging it out at this point might be a bit too much of a challenge. So I thought I'd stick this poster up instead. This is a meme from the time. It's super convincing. That's obviously a space photograph. I don't know what we're all confused about. Now, if we can skip back just one more image. God, I hope this works.
1 second. Here we go.
Oh, sorry, mate. I'll put you on the spot. There he is. Right now.
It's the Son of God.
It is. Now, who would like to talk about David Icke? Anyone? I've got a couple of things I could say, but is there anyone who's done any research themselves? Anthony Bailey. Oh, it's a long silence.
Oh,
no, it's not.
No, I'm back. I'm back. Well, Iki, I'm tending to stay away from him. I've done a little bit with the Sitchins and Heisman,
Yeah.
Heiser. Anyways, and their take on all that. But with his, that's a bit too far out for me because he sees reptilian overlords and everything. So.
Yeah, wait, the thing is, he's a big proponent of it even to this day. He's just woven it into his incredibly long and complex narrative involving the Queen, lizards, the royal family, greys. You know, I mean, he's a bit of a favorite on the show because he's found a way to weave every modern conspiracy theory into one great big story around which he can make an 11-hour show. And frankly, I just like putting his picture on screen so I can laugh about the ideas he comes up with for a bit. But yeah, he was a big supporter of the idea that the NIBIRU Cataclysm was coming both before 2012, during and after, and since. He's also an ancient alien proponent. I mean, this man is the absolute works. If I can recommend learning about anyone in the con artist community, it's this chap, because I think he probably believes what he's saying. It just has, you know, the same effect total. Now this has basically covered the claim section. I reckon we've looked at some of the players involved and some of the thing they've said. Does anyone want to jump in with any facts or data I might have missed around some of the claims that have been made, or are we pretty happy to move on?
I think we're good here on my part.
Beautiful. Well, Bobby, in which case I'm going to turn to you again because I'm just getting a message on my 90s beeper now that we are live from space again as we have another special report from Port Punky in our special giant probe.
So, congratulations to Feck You and Marvel Girl, who both spotted Nibiru in the bottom right of the screen last time. That's good.
Woo!
Congratulations.
Well done. Congratulations. We got sharp podcast.
Our probe is following Nibiru. So if Bobby, you can roll the footage, keep your eyes peeled. Nibiru is out there once again. First people to spot it are amazing. Type your answers in the chat. To point the wrong way.
No, you got it. Did you see it? Could you spot it? There's not much of it. These are so short and sweet. Do you know what? Like, Port Punky showed these to me. It took endless viewings before I spotted 3 of them, and I'm still not sure on a couple of them now. Thank you ever so much for that. We'll be returning to that very shortly, I'm sure. Whilst we're on the mission, I'm going to ask Bobby to turn back to my folder as well. We're going to have another couple of attempts at NIBIRU or not, and I want all my answers from the panel and from the audience. Just stick them in the chat and let us know what you think it is. So, Bobby, have we got those ready?
Yes, you want the next image on that one?
I certainly do.
Here we go. 1 second, gentlemen.
Wait for it. Dum, dum, dum.
All right. Well,
Next folder. It's fine. We're good at this.
Not
We're
new bros.
Right. Pete Berube. I think
Ooh.
you might know the answer to this
Ooh,
one.
ooh,
Do you
yeah.
recognize this image?
Yes, I do.
What is this, sir?
Not Nibiru.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Aw.
Now, look, obviously you're looking at this completely raw. Maybe you've seen the image before. Do you know what that bright spot is?
I do. Yes, it's Venus.
It certainly is. Absolutely. See, this is why we bring you on, man. You know the stuff. And do you know what? Do you know what satellite this one's being taken from?
That actually I do not know.
Soho.
Do you not? That's,
Soho.
I believe
Look at
that is Soho. I think
Look
that's
at Robert.
absolutely.
Coming through
Brilliant
like
stuff.
it needs to.
I
Thanks,
need to get on
man.
the
See?
thing for this.
So great. Look, actually, Bobby, while you're on the case, you might as well step us on to the next image because that's another one that Pete Berube's going to know instantly. I guarantee it. Right.
Oh yeah.
Just, you know what? Why even pretend? Just tell us what's going on here, man.
All right. This is V838.
It is.
Now we don't know precisely what may cause this, but the red spot in the middle is a red supergiant, and we think it ate its little neighbor, and it started puffing out all the extra that it couldn't handle. So this is basically a time lapse of that event.
Ah,
Nice. I mean, look, it's beautiful if you ask me. You can see the obvious shift. And actually, just for people who aren't sure, we're talking about a space anomaly or a space event, right? Normally, when we look at these things happen, they can happen
Yes.
over the course of months or years. And when we talk about these things eventuating, sometimes it's not just decades, but it's thousands of years. We can look at a nebula that it's still showing signs of a supernova that happened 1 million years ago. This is something that happened from the space of May to what was it? December.
Yeah,
Like,
less than a year.
it's just incredible, this huge change that happened in space. But obviously,
Yep.
the Nibiru proponents jumped all over that shit and claimed
What
that
are
it
the
was.
chances of catching that? Like
Oh, right. It's
that small
extraordinary.
that small time frame, and just you caught that one little. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
man.
amazing.
Well, this is why one day, I mean, there is not so far from us a supernova waiting to happen. And it's
Correct.
far enough away that it doesn't necessarily, we've got a 99% sure we'll be fine. But it's going to light up the sky like it was twilight for 2 weeks, or at least for the first 5 days. Like, in the course of a few hours, a new star will appear in the sky, even if it's daytime, right? Which is just
Yep.
amazing. And then that's going to stick around for the course of about 2.5, 3 weeks, maybe more, still visible during the day until it eventually fades. Like, that is just, I cannot wait till we manage to not only have that, but properly image it, because that's like a big step for us. We've been waiting for a nice close supernova, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's happened once before in history that we know of where it's actually been
Mhm.
witnessed, and that was by the Chinese. And we looked at their charts and we looked into the sky where they saw it, and we found the Crab Nebula.
That is just great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. This is why I love astronomy so much, see, because I mean, actually, I suppose while we're on the subject of astronomy, I can make a neat little segue into history here, right? And we can talk about maybe some of the Sumerian stuff. So, I think if we go on to the next image in my Nibiru or not, I will give the game away and tell you, guess what? It's not Nibiru. What it is it's some images of some stars on a seal, right? We were talking about this earlier, and Port Punky pointed it out, right?
it's got to be Nibiru.
This is what it's all based on, is the idea that that image in the middle is the sun, and then it's surrounded by 12 planets. Now, if you actually count it, it doesn't have the correct number of planets around it, but Also, importantly, the star is completely different to every other depiction of every other star in all of these Sumerian scrolls, where it is always done the same way. Now, I think I just stepped on poor Ponky there. What were you saying, mate?
I wanted to jump in because you said there's not the right number of planets, but there is the star and 11 planets. And remember, the sun is a planet, so that's 12.
Oh, of course. What am I saying? Yeah. I forget this every single time. It's not me that's having the problem. Well, it is. It's me that's having the problem counting. Is what it is.
12 planets includes the sun and the moon
Yes.
and Pluto.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nibiru.
What? See, why the moon? Why our moon, but not like the 40 or so moons around Saturn, or the at least 17 major moons of Jupiter? It doesn't make any sense.
Marketing, I don't know if like the 158th planet sounds quite as good as the 12th.
Yeah, you might have a point there. We do have a fair few. I suppose at this point then, because we've looked at some of the claims and we've looked sort of a bit at some of the evidence of some of these photos, but I think maybe we ought to look at some of the rebuttals against the evidence, because we've explained a couple of the pictures away, but there's certain claims about Nibiru which just don't make sense. The first one for me, and I pointed this out the very first time I heard about it, and I was talking to Port Punky, is that a 3,600-year orbit to that level of eccentricity can only be stable if it's not in an orbital system which doesn't have a lot of other stuff precariously balanced. Sending something in that is the purported size and speed and orbit of this, as soon as it sort of gets through about 3 orbits, it completely upsets the entire solar system. Pete Berube, I'm going to turn to you again because you sort of know a little bit about this stuff. Have you found out anything about this?
Yeah, well, we looked at that to find it, but when we actually like do the math to see if it works like in reality with physics, it's the object would have to be too small to see, to not just act like a bowling ball down an alley when it hits, comes back around and hits the inner solar system.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be large and slow and an elliptical orbit, yes, but not like that. It'd be more rounded elliptical.
This is it. Well, now, see, I found a few examples where people had actually tried to sort of plug this stuff into a simulator and see what would happen. And it seems that they got a few models to work, but only if your time steps are above 42 days. Okay. As soon as you started to calculate these things down to time jumps of, 2 weeks or 2 days or even an hour, that's a single orbit of something in that arrangement immediately upsets the planets. It starts throwing outer planets out. It starts pulling inner planets in. It has really nightmarish effects. You'd know straight away about it. Quite apart from the fact that it'd be visible. A Jupiter-sized planet on that orbital path would undoubtedly be visible. Zaposte, I think I see you nodding along. What do you think about all this so far?
Yeah, the idea that it's visible actually is interesting because it comes up in the real study of a possible planet out beyond Neptune and Uranus. Michael E. Brown and Konstantin Batygin, I'm sure if anyone's ever looked into this stuff, have heard of those guys. But one thing I thought was interesting is that Michael E. Brown mentioned that if Planet 9 was in perihelion, that it would be visible through backyard telescopes. As it's
correct,
not, it's not particularly dark or any, it's not a black planet. It would be made up of the same stuff as the others, gas or rock, and so that either suggests that it's in aphelion, it's very far away, or it's somewhere in between its orbit. But I thought that was interesting. So we would be able to see it if it was coming that close.
Absolutely. There's one interesting bit of conjecture that I saw. If it's supposed to be a terrestrial planet, a rocky planet, essentially, one which can support people on it, which is, after all, generally the claim, it's not supposed to be a gas giant generally. It has to be on an elliptical orbit, which has such a sudden turn around the sun when it gets here that it's sort of it would pull the planet apart. Any rocky body that we're aware of would not be able to undergo the change in angular velocity and momentum as it goes around that curve without breaking up. Essentially, it's not possible to build a system in any feasible way using the physics that we know to get this to work. Right, the only models that we've got, you can do it if the perihelion. Incidentally, we're using all these space sciencey terms for people who may not be aware. Aphelion means the furthest point in an orbit from the sun, and perihelion means the closest. Now, that helion bit refers to the sun. Now, if it's talking about the Earth, they call it perigee or apogee, right? But the general term when you're talking about any celestial body at all is you have your apoapsis, the furthest point, and the periapsis. So when you hear us using these slightly confusing terms, think apo as in apogee as in the highest, that's the furthest away, and perigee is just the opposite, the closest one. Okay, so that's all we're talking about there. Now, who did I step on before? Was that Pete? Sorry, you were talking.
Nope, it was good. Nope, I was just going to kind of explain what you just explained, so that's cool. All good.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
No, it's okay. We all know
Just
information is great.
do you know what? In that case, just while we're on the point, I can recommend to everyone listening to get on Kerbal Space Program because it basically taught me orbital mechanics. I don't know about you guys, but that game was amazing for that. Now, look, where are we? I think it's about time that we had another live report. I can see the red light buzzing above my desk. So I'm going to turn to Bobby now, who's going to connect us to Port Ponky once again, floating away. Hello, buddy. How are you doing?
Hi. The last report, nobody found Nibiru, I don't think. The closest was Facthard, who said it's hard to see on a phone. It's something.
It addresses the answer. It does. I'll give you that. Closest so far.
Indeed there. I'll leave that as an exercise for people watching this later. But yes, our probe continues to follow Nibiru. Let's see if anyone can spot the next one. Again, answers in the chat if you want to be amazing.
Here we go.
Who saw it? Anyone see it?
I think I actually saw it.
I didn't
that time.
see it.
I thought it. I thought it.
No spoilers. Answers are in the chat
Nope.
only. Stop you chat people. We love them.
Oh, I look forward to it. All right, look, Bobby, I'm going to ask you to go switch over to my Nibiru or not folder, and I'm going to clear up the last couple of images in that one. And then we might even jump straight back to another live report and have another chance to look at some other Nibirus, because I think we've got a couple of those left. So, Bobby, if you would.
Which image would you like? The next one?
I would like the next one in the Nibiru or not folder. The last one I think we saw was V838 monocirrhosis. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, what are you looking at here? Is it Nibiru or is it not
Can I cut in?
Nibiru? I'm going to give you about 20 seconds to answer that one. Bobby, you sound like you've got one. What do you reckon?
I'd like to take this one when the 20 seconds are up.
Okay, that's fair enough. The thing is, I think you should jump in now because I've got a second image to follow it up with. So what do you reckon,
Yeah.
Bobby? What is it?
Very familiar.
It looks suspiciously like a Star Wars scene. I would take that's Tatooine.
Well, in which
Ding,
case,
ding,
Bobby,
ding,
let's
ding,
skip to
ding.
the next image and let's have a look, shall we?
Real quick. In
It
the
is
chat,
not Nibiru. Yes, it's a prostate. Go ahead.
yeah, in the chat, Chris Katsolis says that Nibiru was in Jupiter's red spot.
Was it
And the
indeed?
conspiracy agrees, and so does Turquoise Laura. So is that correct?
Wow.
People are
I
amazing.
did not see that.
Amazing.
That's quality. Look, this is why we've got such a great audience, because they can teach us live in show. Right, yeah, look, ladies and gentlemen, you're correct. It is not Nibiru. It's Tatooine, obviously. I just wanted to see if I could keep you on your toes.
How do you know it's not Nibiru? Because maybe in the Star Wars extended universe, that is Nibiru. Remember, it's a
Oh
long.
my god.
Maybe
I
it
don't
left
actually know that.
Tatooine system and floated along to Earth.
Who knows? Well, you know, maybe its son's just Nibiru A and Nibiru B. Who knows, man? You might be right. Well, look, in that case, we're just going to go to the last image, and it's a little bit of a joke one here because I think you're going to spot straight away what's going on. But let's skip to that one there, Bobby. Is it Nibiru or is it not Nibiru? Okay.
This the image you want?
Okay. Yeah, this is the one. Prostate. Can I hear you giggling, or was it Port Ponky? I couldn't tell.
I'm completely convinced. Well, I don't see any issues with this image. It's clearly Nibiru.
Well,
It's my favorite.
Fragment E is definitely Nibiru, but I don't think Fragment D is.
No. No. Completely unrelated, those two things, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think he may have spotted what's going on. Although, to be fair, this was posted on April the 1st, claiming to be Nibiru fragments, and it was posted by quite a famous equivalent of a troll site back then. This is not Nibiru. This is a picture of the sun taken through some clouds that someone's put some white spots on. But it just shows you the depths to which people can be convinced. A lot of people were convinced by this image, and it's possibly my favorite one of all time. That's it. That's my little game played. I think we've all had a good examples of the different claims and evidence that have been made. And what I'm wondering is, what sort of stuff have I missed so far? As far as I can tell, we've looked at the claims about the size of the orbit. Looks a little bit about where the claims came from, how long they've been around, where they sort of originated from, and exactly what they were. Does anyone think of anything I've missed so far? Tony Bailey, do you reckon we're up to speed?
Oh, pretty much. I did want to mention the constant talk about Nibiru and coming within the Earth orbit is, not really so much. Because all Newtonian objects that they found till now have been dwarf planets. And remember that dwarf planet, because Pluto is a dwarf planet, so everything is pretty much the same size or smaller than Pluto. And they are past Neptune, meaning they would have no effect on Earth whatsoever. The next hypothesis that's running around out there is that Nibiru could be a black hole.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about this one. Absolutely, yeah. Do tell all, because I mean, it's extraordinary.
The thing about it being a black hole with 40 times the Earth mass, it would be about this big.
Yeah, that's about right.
Now, I think I'm right, Pete. You can correct me on this. The smaller the black hole, the longer it takes to evaporate away. Is that right?
For the most part, yes.
So, the argument, I suppose, is that a black hole that small could still be around because they last that long. But as I understand it, we've never observed any black hole that small, right? It's only sort of hypothesized that is even possible. But they're talking about a remnant. Is that correct?
Yeah, primordial black hole.
Hang on, did you say the smaller the black hole, the longer it takes to evaporate?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
I know.
At all.
As it evaporates, becomes smaller.
I know.
And then it takes longer? No,
yes.
I don't buy it.
Exponentially.
There's less radiation to force the it to fall apart.
It's like going hungry.
So you're saying,
isn't it to do with the probability across any given area of the surface area of the black hole allows for this radiation exchange to happen? So the smaller the surface area, the lower the chance.
The rate of evaporation
to a cube because it's a sphere.
So you're saying that go ahead, Wonky.
The rate of evaporation is asymptotic, so it's slow. The evaporation slows down the smaller it gets.
Indeed.
Exactly. So basically, if you sat a big one and a small one next to each other, and they started decaying at the same time, the big one would be there longer, but the rate of decay is faster for the smaller.
Yeah, you'd watch the big one shrink down almost to the size of the small one. Obviously, it'd be around longer, but the fact is, it would shrink quite quickly, and they'd be very similar in size for quite a long time.
The flames die quickly, but the embers burn for a long time.
Cool.
Yeah, sort of. Now, look, while we're here, I want to go to Zapostate and see if there's been any questions or comments in the chat that you wanted to bring up yet.
Oh, gee. Just a reminder from Marvel Girl for fundraiser for They and Them / Bacon God. Friday 13th on Conspiracy Cats' channel at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. There's been a couple little fun. ETC and the Conspiracy brought up the Anunnaki reference. I knew he would be into that sort of stuff. Turquoise Laura, have I missed the bit where they try to explain why no one anywhere has ever seen a ninth planet?
Right.
Feck you, Jim agreed with you that that orbit would not be stable. The changes would affect the apogee massively, he says.
The one thing I would point out really quickly at this juncture, the very first thing I said when I heard about a 3,600-year orbit was, that's impossible. It's barely going to remain stable. It can't last, right? And then I went and found out about it, and actually, it's a lot more stable than you think. Actually, the reason that it can't be stable is specifically to do with upsetting. Like, its orbit would remain stable. It would just completely disrupt the rest of the solar system. Like, that's the greater problem. It's just that if it's extreme enough, over time it will start to lose that as shepherding effects happen. So it's a mixture of both things, but there's this nuance I really wanted to bring up because it was new to me, and I think people might be interested in it. Anyway, sorry, mate, please do carry on.
Oh no, that's good for now.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Well, look, that being the case, I just wondered whether or not we'd covered a few of the Anunnaki claims enough, because at some point we are going to be talking about the ancient aliens things. How could we possibly avoid Georgios Tsoukalos, right? But for the record, I wondered if anyone knew a little bit about it and they wanted to explain what the claims were, because as I understand it, the idea is that sometime between 1500 and 500 BC, these Anunnaki, who were translated as being people who came down from the sky, sort of interacted with people in a number of ways, which seem to be the basis of some biblical stories and other sociocultural stories from the era. But there are specific problems, and the main thing being the translation. Ponky, you talked a little bit about this. Can you speak to that at all?
Oh, I did so much reading about the Anunnaki, and I probably shouldn't have, because it's kind of nonsense, like the translation you get of them coming down from above. That's not really what it means. Let's say that Sitchin wasn't very precise with his translations. That's a generous way of putting it. But yeah, basically, Sumerians and a bunch of other people had a bunch of deities called the Anunnaki, who are the descendants of An and Ki. An was the goddess of something, heaven or something, and Ki was the god of something else, not heaven.
Well, I think it is right that you have two demigods, well, not demigods exactly, but two sub-gods which joined together in order to become like the main god or some sort of super god, An and Ki. And the Unak bit in the middle is describing people who are offspring of An and Ki. That's to say, An and Ki's people, if you like. Is that right?
They have a huge family tree. They had like 5 kids, and those kids had kids, and then they had various fights, most of which were confusing and didn't really make any sense. Eventually, a dude called Marduk turned up, and Nibiru. That's it. It's just Nibiru at the end for no apparent reason. I mean, this is a really compressed version. It's almost a non sequitur where it's like, yeah, this all with the gods and stuff. Also Nibiru, and Nibiru
but the actual
different things, but it's a planet.
Now, the Nibiru link, as I understand it, to the planet is to do with the fact that the Sumerians were astronomers of some note, essentially. And so they had names for the planets which were in line with their mythologies, obviously. Marduk famously is Jupiter, right? Now, Nibiru is a word that describes the planet that is crossing. And it's been applied to several different planets, which suggests that Nibiru isn't even a planet in their culture. It actually talks about a particular point in the sky where it's describing whichever planet is crossing that point. Now, I forget what equatorial line it is. Is it a tropic? I'm not 100% sure what it is. It might just be the ecliptic. But Punky, can you remember what it is?
I don't recall, but you're correct that Nibiru is not a specific thing in the Sumerian. It's used to mean a few things, specifically a few planets or whatever. So obviously insisted it's Nibiru, and the Anunnaki, who are people of alien origin, live there.
Indeed. Now, while I'm on the subject, I suppose Pete Berube, because it is a vaguely astronomy-based question, can you imagine what they might be talking about when they're talking about a planet crossing a particular sort of ecliptic line? I mean, does it make sense? I mean, it sounds to me like they're swapping from one season to another, so it's some sort of equinox. I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps you read about it.
Well, I didn't read about it, but it does seem to come across as Jupiter crosses this background stars at this part of the year, and then like Saturn would cross this background stars at this part of the year, because you can generally see the background stars, every summer, that like never changes too much, especially in one's lifetime.
Sure.
So.
Okay. That puts a bit more of a light on it, actually, I suppose. Okay. And well, look, can anyone at this point think of anything that they'd like to bring up in terms of the evidence and claims that hasn't been? Because if not, we'll probably get to move on to the conclusions in a moment. So now's the time. Anyone want to jump in? Lovely.
There's so much more about the Anunnaki. I've forgotten most of it because, to be honest, it's kind of nonsense. I mean, the basic idea that the Sumerians believed this was literally true and not a mythos isn't established.
Right.
The Anunnaki came, they wanted to mine for gold to reinforce their planet's atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
And they possibly invented humans using genetic engineering because mining was really challenging, but apparently genetic engineering is just a laugh. So, it goes on and on. We could honestly do a whole episode simply about the Anunnaki claims.
Well, indeed. In fact, we are probably going to look at an Ancient Aliens claim. So that's an Ancient Aliens episode even. There's a lot to go on there, and I really want to get back to it. Well, it sounds to me like we've covered all of the basic claims and evidence and what have you. I think it's time that we moved on to the conclusions. But first, I think we've got a couple more live reports from space to come. So with that in mind, I'm going to go over to Port Ponky, and Bobby's going to line up the next video.
Yes. Zaposte already said who spotted NIBIRU. Was indeed in Jupiter's red spot, hiding there just at the end. Gosh, it's getting closer, isn't it? Yeah, I think we have another live report.
Certainly do.
Is Bobby here?
I am.
Oh, hi.
Hey, buddy.
Do you have that live feed from space that's definitely live and not like clearly edited?
It's clearly not. Yeah.
Coming now, sorry.
Yeah, we don't want to miss it.
Gosh, did you spot it? Answers in the chat. If you find it, you're amazing. If not, we love you anyway. And you still.
Well, you're better than me because I couldn't manage.
I actually saw it that time.
I caught it. Quality. That's awesome. Lovely stuff. Well, look, there's one more of those to go, I think. I'm wondering whether or not we shouldn't just press on and watch that last one to give people a go whilst they're still in the mood for looking. So, Pop Ponky, we'll jump back onto the last live report. I think there's another instant report coming through.
Do it at the end. Give them some time. They've not even spotted this NIBIRU.
You sure? All right, stick that one at the very end. That's absolutely fair enough. In which case, look, let's get on to some conclusions here, right? Because there's a lot of stuff to talk about, as we discussed. I think we've had a pretty good go at whether or not the orbits are reliable. But in my mind, whether or not a planet could support intelligent life on that sort of orbit seems highly questionable to me. Pete Berube, you know quite a bit about how the Goldilocks zone works, for instance. Perhaps you could speak to that.
Yep. Just for example, the Earth is sitting in it. It's a distance away from any star that where liquid water can exist. That's the basic gist of it.
Like the professional I am, once a week I leave myself on mute for too long. So sorry about that. Yes, absolutely. The Goldilocks zone is, as I understand it, isn't it? Now, there's something specific as well. The triple point of water, right? You have to be able to have liquid water, frozen water, and airborne moisture at the same time. Basically, the planet needs to, at some point, cross this 0 degree or 0.0001 degree boundary at some point. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, it's got to sit in just the right spot to consistently have liquid water.
Absolutely. Now, it's not quite as perfect a zone as people might think. It's quite a wide band. For instance, Mars just about skirts one edge of it, and Venus is actually well within it in theory. It's just unfortunately, because of its heavily CO2 atmosphere, the place is a nightmarish hellhole of epic proportions. So that being the case, it is, isn't it? What a terrible place Venus is. What a nightmare. 90 degrees pressure, 90 times pressure at the surface, 450 degrees C, which is about 800 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface.
Yeah.
Absolute nightmare. Every probe that's gone there lasted about 30 seconds. Including, actually, it's a slight tangent, but it's my favorite Venus probe story ever. I think it's Venera 6. I hope that's right. The Russians sent a probe to Venus. It was awesome. They landed, they popped the lens cap off, and they put an arm down to take a rock sample, and they realized that the lens cap had landed exactly where the sampler was, and they got about 30 seconds of footage, and the whole thing melted, completely wasting their time. I mean, I love that story. I can't think why. I just get a little giggle the guy who invented the arm and the lens cap must have been sitting there with his head in his hands. Poor guy. Anyway, look, the Goldilocks zone is this big zone throughout which water exists on a planet. Now, does that zone extend to a 3,600-year orbit on an extremely elliptical path, Pete?
Not for liquid water, but liquid methane, yes.
Ah, okay. Now, would liquid methane in any way be useful for complex life? I mean, I know that silicon is given as a possibility other than carbon for space life. So is that an option?
We think that it can be due to the Titan. The moon on Saturn has tons and tons of liquid methane. And it rains methane, has all the same features as Earth, just it does it in methane. So if anywhere was going to have any kind of life based on methane, it would be there. Because it is a fuel, so...
Well, absolutely. It's a hydrocarbon, right? So it's got just what you need in it to sort of energetically power things. For the record, in terms of life in other solar system planets which are out at that distance, there are a couple of hypotheses. You've got, now, let me see if I get this right. Is it Enceladus? There are 1 or 2 moons out there which have got theorized salt oceans underneath the ice crust. Pete, is that right? Can you help me out with the names here?
Enceladus around Saturn and Europa around Jupiter are the 2 main ones.
Right, that's it. And because they've got large, they think, salty sort of liquid oceans on, they have every reason to believe that, for instance, around chemical sea vents, if there's volcanism, there might be enough heat and energy to support the sort of the creation of life, right? That's something that's been positive?
Yeah, and that's what we think Europa is the likeliest candidate for that because of the stresses put on by Jupiter that actually we can see cracks and stuff in the surface ice. So the whole thing's getting distorted. So we assume, I hate using that word, but we assume that same effect is happening to whatever kind of rocky core that it has, which would release more gases into the water in the same way they would here on Earth on the deep sea vents.
Indeed. Now, if you look at Io, which is just next door, which is the most volcanically active body in the entire solar system, you'll realize that bodies which orbit around Jupiter, firstly, they do so in, now, what did you call it earlier? It's one of those orbits where they sort of sync up. I can't remember the term.
Resonance.
Resonant orbits. Thank you, sir. That's why we have you on. What that basically means is that, say, the inner moon goes round 4 times. The moon outside it goes round twice. And the one outside, that goes round once. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but it means that they all line up. And when that happens, they exert huge stresses on the rocky cores of these moons, and they give them a huge amount of volcanism. Now, if one of these moons is covered with an ocean, there's no reason to think that down at the depths you haven't got warm ocean currents, a huge amount of chemical being put into the water, which would be the basis of chemical reactions, basically energy, water, all the things we think are necessary for life. That's pretty much on the money, isn't it? I think I'm right there.
Yeah, heat, water, there we go.
Beautiful. There's even been a couple of suggestions for
Uh-oh.
Jimmy roboted out, my friend. Are you still there?
Yep.
Maybe
Jimmy.
It's not technical difficulties. Maybe that's like he's actually seized up.
No, his video feed is lost as well.
I know I'm being silly.
Yeah, but it's actually a concern for him.
It is. He'll get back as soon as he can. In the meantime, some people did indeed spot NIBIRU.
Yay!
And
in the last one or in the third one? The last one.
In the fourth one.
I gotcha.
And it was, I've forgotten who it was, and I'm scrolling up.
That was ETC and
Chris Cataclysm. You are good at this, Chris. That's the second one you've nailed pretty quick. And yeah, ETC. Peeking in at the top right. Yep. That's that dang NIBIRU. It's getting closer. I'm very concerned.
Yeah. You can see details now.
Yeah. So, Pete, I guess
Yes.
Jim was leading into questions about the feasibility of liquid water on Nibiru.
No.
No?
Short answer, no.
There is explanations for
long answer would be it's
no.
possible if it comes to the inner solar system and the things start to melt, but it would be at such a short duration, giving the time span you need to develop life, that it would be worthless.
So there is an explanation given by the conspirators in this regard, which is that Nibiru has either a lot of radiation or a lot of seismic activity, which causes it to have a lot of natural volcanism,
Okay.
or a lot of like just radioactive heat from
Well,
deep down. Is there any problems you think of with that one?
the problem is, we've got this great filters question. By the way, I don't know how far ago I dropped out there. Sorry about that. It's the terrible connection from living in the deep countryside. So,
You dropped out a minute or two ago. We covered who found Nibiru, and I was just pressing Pete on how to explain why Nibiru would be a cold, dark, frozen deathland.
Indeed.
It still have water.
Yeah.
But there are problems with complex life appearing, right? Because complex life needs variation. Again, it's one of those things. This planet's quite idyllic in some senses, which there are lots of environments for things to move into and diversify in. If everything relies on getting its energy from, say, radiation, that can have deleterious effects to the ability to then have those conditions later to move into. But I mean, I don't know how much you know about exobiology, Pete. You're certainly an astro.
To keep the heat going while it's away from the sun, because once it reaches our outer solar system and then keeps going, it no longer has the radiation from the sun, so it has to have an internal radiation, and that would lead to say the core would be huge, like a big liquid, inner and outer mantle that would have to sustain it for millennia as it's away from our solar system coming back around. And to have that much radiation would definitely probably kill anything on the surface.
You would imagine.
And then for it to do it, since the beginning of the solar system, we would notice a big radiation band as it goes around, for one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it would leave radiation in its wake. So
now, as I understand it, there's a couple of objects which do have. Is it Sedna has got an 11,400 year orbit? Is that right?
Yeah, it's somewhere. It's way out up there in time.
It's extraordinary, but because by its nature, the closest it comes in is trans-Neptunian. That means it's got actually a less eccentric orbit than a 3,600 year orbit on something that comes in really close, like that comes as far as the Earth, which means that the outermost reach of its orbit, as I understand it, is beyond the heliopause. So at some point, this planet has to pass through the Oort cloud, through the thermosphere, across the sort of the bow wave at the front of this, the shock wave, into the cold, fiery reaches of interstellar radiation, and then back in again every 3,600 years, giving it a regular sort of about 300 doses of insurvivable radiation every million years. I mean, that doesn't sound plausible to me. Like, surely nothing can survive that, right?
No, and it's when like a body like Cessna gets out to like the heliosphere out there, it's basically just bathing in anti-life materials, if you want to call it that. And,
more or less.
And it's actually spending quite a bit of time in that region, like making its U-turn to like come back around. So time is the biggest killer on any of those having life.
Yeah, I think so. That's a reasonable point, well made. God, blimey. I mean, I don't know really where to go from this point. We've had a look at a lot of these claims. Are there any sort of specific bits of debunking that people have been looking at that people really wanted to bring up? Maybe someone looked at the ancient aliens aspect, or someone looked at the video clip. Anything really. If you want to jump in, just sort of let me know, I suppose. Zaposte, anything you think we haven't covered so far?
Looking at my notes, I think we've gone over most of what I've looked into. A lot of the problems that people like this Sitchin guy brought up as far as having the Nephilim living on Nibiru was just covered pretty well by Pete and Port Ponky there. I think that's about it for me. Yeah.
Okay, well, look, in that case, I think it's probably about time that we're getting close to the end of the show anyway, ladies and gents. What I'll do is I'll turn this into our goodbye final thoughts and roundtables. Apostate, if this is sort of your last comment of the evening, have you got anything further you'd like to add in terms of material you'd like to shell out or extra comments that you want to read? Anything really, now's the time.
No, just don't forget to subscribe to Captain Phobos. Links are in the description and in the chat, as well as check out our good friend here, Pete Berube. Also, links in the description and chat. I think that is going to do it for me for this week. Thank you much.
Thank you very much indeed, Apostate. How about you, Anthony Bailey? What do you think about the evening so far? You got any final conclusions?
Well, I think it went pretty well. Thanks, Pete, for showing up. The Anunnaki stuff, well, no, I don't think so. That's pretty too far-fetched. I mean, they say in 400,000 years, the Anunnaki were brought here to mine gold. I mean, that's something we touched on before the show. And then we humans are gene-manipulated monkeys. Well, okay, we are monkeys, or great apes. And at 10,000 years ago, but we do have evidence for people like us running around here for 100,000 years. So, yeah, that all doesn't fit too well.
Yeah,
But all that story. Yep.
It's almost like they've just put those they find little gaps in the history where we know sort of roughly what happened, but we've got no detail because it was a long stretch of prehistoric time. And then they just make up some details and shove them in, which is hard to prove or disprove because it sort of could or could not fit with what we already know. And it's just intentionally vague, really. A lot of the claims I've looked at, they're completely unprecise on what they think they're even claiming in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yep.
All right. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for those final thoughts. Have you got any final little bits of advertising you want to do? Obviously, we've got Captain Phobos. I thought you might want to shout him out. Have you got any videos coming, anything like that before we say goodbye?
No, I don't have anything in the moment.
Okay, brilliant. Well, look, thank you again. Thank you ever so much for coming once again. I think I'll turn to... We've talked to Apostate, we've talked to Anthony Bailey. Robert Leger III, how about you, buddy? How have you viewed the show from your perspective?
I think it's been another great show, covering another silly topic. This has been firmly and factually debunked. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still fun to speculate on things like this, but people actually considering this as a possibility just drive me kind of crazy, and I just don't get it.
No, do you know what, though? I think that's sort of the perfect viewpoint on it, because if someone was going to ask me from the outside what all of this stuff was about, I'd probably point them now in your direction and say, just talk to Bobby, because he will explain in simple terms why you don't need to worry. This is nonsense. It's more mad people saying wrong things again. Poor Ponky, what about you, mate? Have you got any final thoughts for the day?
Oh, so the ancient Sumerians figured out all this stuff about a planet that is way out there, but they couldn't figure out how to not die when their teeth hurt. And now we can't find this planet when we've got multiple space telescopes and other cool things. It just doesn't quite add up. It just doesn't add up. So Planet 9 as a scientific topic, yeah, that's interesting. Nibiru, I don't think so. And if someone says we're all going to die in 2025 or something, then yeah, I wouldn't care too much. The easiest way to disprove that is just wait.
It's worked so far.
It's worked every time.
Yeah, literally every time. Actually, that's my favourite fact about apocalyptic claims, is that there has never been an apocalyptic claim in all of history that wasn't wrong. All of them, every single goddamn one. And that should tell you something, shouldn't it? Poor Ponky, and as well, Bobby, I forgot to ask you, is there any final things that you'd like to chill out for? Because I know Marvel Girls got that fundraiser. Everyone, once again, should get over to that. But was there anything else you wanted to mention, Bobby? I can't hear you at all, mate.
Sorry about that. personal me. Off the top of my head, like I haven't been around much the past 2 weeks watching YouTube and stuff, so I really don't know everything that's going on. So no, I have nothing to show as far as that's going on. But
Cool.
I look forward to seeing everybody next week and see you all in the tubes.
Absolutely. No, me too. Brilliant stuff.
Don't
All right,
forget
and
the
sorry,
video.
yeah, absolutely. But Port Punky, sorry, mate. Back to you. Have you got any final shillings for the week you'd like to do?
Sure. I'm actually in a very aggressive subscriber war with End the Conspiracy.
Oh yeah.
So you got to sub to my channel, 1 Minute Debunk, and also sub to End the Conspiracy. It's day 28 or something, and we've gained about 4 subscribers each. So this is going to go on a long time.
Yeah.
What will
In
end
it for the
first?
long run.
It's a marathon.
Cyber war, or will NIBIRU hit planet Earth?
I mean, the sun might expand and consume the earth by the time we all get there, but it's worth it for the race. I shall be there every exhilarating step of the way. Well, all right, thank you very much for that, Port Punky. We've talked to all the panelists, we've talked to me, and that just leaves one person to ask for his final thoughts. Pete Berube, our illustrious and hallowed guest. Thank you for bringing some quality to the argument. Just look, final thoughts, bits of debunking, stuff we haven't covered. It's up to you, really. This is your time to tell us what you think.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. This has been a blast.
Oh, you're welcome, mate. Anytime.
Yep. And no, we did a pretty good job at going through all the stupid stuff about Planet X and 9 and 12 and Nibiru and whatever else they want to call it. And, when evidence comes around, I'm all down for looking at it, determining if it's legit or not. And but I wanted to say real quick about Mike Brown, who he does really good outer solar system stuff. If you remember, he's the one that actually killed Pluto, not Neil deGrasse Tyson. He put out a book called Why I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming. And
that's a great title.
Yeah. So really, if you really want to find out about, stuff on like the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud, go look up Mike Brown's work out of Caltech. He probably has the best stuff you can find to date right now.
That's excellent. Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, Sci-Fi Sunday next week is The Manster from 1959, black and white.
Oh,
absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Wait until you see the costumes and the non-CGI graphics that come with this thing. It is great.
It's going to be heaven. I will be there. You can guarantee it. That's fantastic. Brilliant stuff. Well, look, I mean, I don't know if there's anything I can add to the table that hasn't already been basically said. I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I suppose a big thank you to everyone for coming. As ever, it's been a pleasure. Now, if you have any comments or questions now, obviously the show's over, so putting in the chat's not going to help, but make sure you leave us a comment or you get an email to us at goingcriticalshow@gmail.com. We do want to interact with you as much as possible. We try and answer all of the comments that we get left. I'd also ask you to remember, Get into the description, right? We've got great links. Every week we put them there. This week it's going to be Pete Berube. You have to go and have a look at his stuff, and also consider getting attached to his Twitter, because he sort of puts out these astronomy photos pretty frequently, which I think are just fantastic. And as he's told you, he does the Sci-Fi Sunday. Let's see, what have I got on the list? Look, I think that's it.
Live reports from space, perhaps? How's it?
Don't we have one more of those?
Yeah.
Well, look,
video.
Well, this is it. I'm just checking before I say goodbye. I think I had one more. Next week, because next week we're going to be talking about the Philadelphia experiment, which is where supposedly the US teleported a ship. Or did they? Probably not. Now, before we say goodbye, I'm going to have one more live report from space. Port Punky, it's you, mate.
Yeah, before it gets out of radio range.
Yeah. We covered the previous people that found it, ETC and Chris Katsolis. This one is the hardest of all. Everyone keep your eyes peeled. I think Nibiru is getting very close. If Bobby can roll the footage. It's not roll the footage. Feed the live feed.
Rolling.
Definitely
Roll
live.
VT.
Very live.
I think I convinced them.
Here we go.
God. Oh God! Oh man, we've all been killed.
Hey, Port Pontian,
Oh,
I didn't realize that there was text popping up at the end. What did it say?
Said, too bad, Nibiru got you.
Oh,
yeah. It was
Too bad,
there
so
all
sad.
along. Brilliant. All right. Look, I have to give a special vote of thanks to Port Ponky for that, because this week you've been posting me these things. I was in hospital last week, in fact, and you posted them to me while I was still in the ward at one point, and so I had these hilarious videos playing on my phone while people were staring at me, laughing stupidly, sat in the bed. So thank you a lot for those. I think they've been very entertaining. I think we're going to try and get more sort of quizzes and games in over the weeks as we go on, so that's something else to look forward to. I think it's about time that we all say goodbye, though. Let's see. I've read everything on the list now. That means it's time to say goodbye. Everyone, get into the links, check the subscriptions. If you haven't subbed and liked to the channel already, please do that. If you haven't subbed and liked to Pete Barubi's channel, please do that, because you will not forget these films. The one I watched today will stay with me forever. But that being said, wasn't it? It's amazing.
just so y'all know, that's not the only thing Pete does on his channel. He does a lot of astrophotography as well, and great work.
Oh, well, absolutely. Sorry, I'm probably not doing a job properly. I should have written my script better for this. But look, if you go over to his channel, you're going to see the breadth of content that Pete books out. I mean, there's a reason that we brought him on to talk about this subject. He really does know his stuff. So thank you for joining us, Pete. Thank you to everyone who's watching us today. Hopefully you'll see us next week when we talk about the Philadelphia experiment. I think it's time I said good morning, good afternoon, or good night, wherever you are. Thanks for coming. We've been going critical. I've been Jim Bojo. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
So that's
Enough.
Naps.
Yes.